Tim Brewer. Tim Brewer and I go a long way back. Back to when he was the one-man crew for Richard Childress, and I was the one-man PR staff, Mike Mulhern with the Winston-Salem Journal. Times have changed a lot since then. You've got to have hundreds of people on your PR staff these days even. Hundreds of crew guys. A lot of cars. Brewer won some championships with Junior Johnson and Cale Yarborough and had some fun with Darrell Waltrip. Good times all. And if we ever write a book, if I ever write Tim's book, if he ever writes my book, we're both going to have to find some really far deserted island somewhere. But right now he's working for ABC and ESPN, running their state-of-the-art technological center, mobile studio that goes from track to track to track, explaining what happens when a piece breaks, when an engine breaks, trying to explain the nuts and bolts of the sport. Multi-million-dollar facility that is unbelievable unless you can actually sneak inside and see what it's really all about. Those 15 or 30-second sound bites that TV manages to put on with him just don't tell the tale. Let's see if we can sneak in and talk to old Tim and see what he can tell us about Kyle Busch. How did Kyle Busch lose the championship in just 8 days? What really broke?
This is, what do you call this thing?
This is the ESPN Tech Center.
Okay.
And we showed up at Indianapolis.
That's right.
With by far, the best place to illustrate as far as cutaway cars, shock absorbers, brakes. And we put all this stuff together to make sure that I don't have to explain anything to crew chiefs, owners, drivers. I'm here for the race fan. And as long as we're here for the race fan to expand their knowledge on what's actually unfolding on the racetrack, it's like Jed Drake told me. He said, Brewer, I done paid everybody in the garage area. My responsibility is to the fans. So Mike, as you know, I've been around for a long time. I can go back and relate to experiences we've had on pit road, in the race shops, as well as on track misfortunes and fortunes. So anything they can tear up on the racetrack, we can basically elaborate on here in the ESPN Tech Center.
I think it was at Dover about Kyle Busch's piece at Loudon. Could you go over that one more time and show me exactly what happened to take him out of the championship? I mean, or basically
Well,
because you had pieces and you were under the car and you did that whole 9 yards.
What it is, Mike, when you actually look at the anti-sway bar in the front of the car, it basically links both front wheels together. And what we do, we have a turnbuckle that we have an adjustment to the front wheels. But the problem was, when they tried to lock the thing down, they basically had the wrench on the turnbuckle and on the nut, and the guy assumed it was tight, so he didn't get it locked sufficiently. So what happened there is, the thing basically, after about 15 laps, it came apart. And that's actually what happened to Kyle's car when we were in Loudon, New Hampshire.
That's a pretty chintzy way to lose the championship if that turns out. I mean, you can't blame the guy, I mean, because he's got a lot of bolts and nuts to tighten. But
the same guy that had the misfortune here is the same guy that also won 8 races this year. He ain't really shooting because, you know, we've had some very, very good right-hand guys in our career. Mike Hill, Pete Peterson, Pete Wright. And, you know, they've caught me making mistakes. We caught them making mistakes, but we saved each other. But unfortunately, you know, the checklist, yeah, it was checked off. And there's no doubt in my mind that when you're fighting the brake ducts, like trying to get down in here to do this, it's very easy to get the wrenches, and you have to have 2 wrenches to lock this thing together. But it's very easy to get one of the wrenches up on this thing, and you're basically pulling against each other, and you think it's tight.
Yeah.
But it goes back to the experience and the feel, and it's a mistake. You dust yourself off, pick yourself up, and you go back at it again. And I guarantee you he'll never leave one of those the rest of his career.
Yeah,
it's like working for Junior Johnson. You know, the thing that we had the best race car drivers and the best people. And all we basically had to do is keep from making mistakes. And if we give Cale Yarborough, Darrell Waltrip, Bill Elliott, or anybody else that drove for us up there in Carolina, if you give them a bulletproof race car and eliminate mistakes, 9 times out of 10, they're going to be a contender to win the race.
That's good. That's good. So can you give me a 60-second tour of what this room actually is? Just show me what you got here. You got everything under the sun. You got like race cars.
This is a COT car, or what we call the new car.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, it was put together up on Liberty Street in Winston-Salem, North Carolina last year, and I can't say enough about all those guys that, I aggravated bringing pieces and parts in. But Chevrolet funded the thing, but it's an RCR chassis, and they hung sheet metal on it. And now we have it here in the ESPN Tech Center, and it's got by far the best components on it. Goodyear supplied the tires. We've got the shock absorber from Penske. We've got $40,000 worth of Brembo brakes on this thing. And I mean, it's by far the best component that we have in the Tech Center. Another thing, we've got the engine, and it comes from Earnhardt Childress racing engines. Matter of fact, we just changed the valve covers over about 4 weeks ago in Michigan. Put these on there. Before it had the RCR valve covers on it. But we actually got this engine out of Childress's foyer at his race shop. But we've got the older car that we elaborate on in the Nationwide series. But Mike, check this. The ESPN and ABC were owned by Disney. So naturally, the animation guys come back in perspective. So when we're having an issue with a problem, it doesn't matter if it's like a guy overrevs the engine, breaks the valve spring, we can come in here and basically show the fan what's going to happen as far as when the valve drops down, gets out of time, and he's basically going to come in here and make contact with the piston. And you'll think, well, maybe we can run and get away with it. Well, this thing's turning over 9,000 RPM, and what that's going to do is basically going to send the valve down through the piston, and that's when you see all the smoke come out the exhaust side. It comes out the exhaust pipes, and that's the reason you see all that. But with the evolution of technology and the guys at MIT, Disney, and ESPN, you always hear about, well, Brewer, we think he broke a connecting rod. Well, what happened there? This thing's turning, like I said, 9,000 RPM, and we got a deal to where that bearing is riding on a surface of oil. But as soon as the crankshaft touches the bearing, it basically welds itself together. And what that's going to end result's going to be is basically going to break a connecting rod.
So what happened to Kyle Busch last week? And his engine broke. Do we know what happened to that, or is that top secret? Or?
I talked to Jimmy Maycar about 2 hours ago. Matter of fact, I just did a hit for NASCAR now. And what we're going to do right here, we're going to show you. Well, I'll stop that too quick. Let's start over again. Dude, that's exploded. But the problem they had, Mike, we're going to go down here and let it run for just a second. Now we're going to pause it right here. That gives us a view of the lifter. And the lifter was the actual problem, because this thing is actually hard as glass. And we have coatings on it to deter wear. And we actually come in here and micro polish the lobes on the camshaft. But this particular lifter is designed, it's off center of the lobe, and it's got a little taper, so the lifter actually spins all the time. But the wearing of the lifter wore away the coating. And after it wore away that coating, it set down on that metal, and it basically wore itself, and it actually started hammering on the camshaft, and before long the whole thing breaks. You're down a cylinder, and that's what that burnt oil smell was that he was smelling, was the engine trying to kill itself. So he basically just shut it off, and they came in and tried to repair it. But you don't repair stuff like this, do you?
Well, usually those things don't break anymore. I mean, we've gone through a pretty good quality control program over the last 10 years in terms of engines. We have very few blown engines.
You have very few engine failures, but remember at Daytona when all the Chevrolet guys were having issues with the camshaft,
right,
and it's a lubrication problem. But anytime you put really trick ceramic coatings or any kind of coating on components, sometimes you have a problem adhesing to the particular component, and anytime you have that problem, it doesn't matter if it's an engine bearing, a lifter, a piston, or anything else. When you have those problems, it's going to come up and it's going to bite you, because we have filters that we actually pull apart, and by pulling them apart, you can actually run a magnet through it, and if there's any metal in it, that's steel. If there's any aluminum babbitt or something like in it, that's bearing.
Okay,
So, we have all kinds of things.
Sorry.
Whoops. Well, I'll tell you, news happens. Tim Brewer had to go back to work. I've got to go back to work. That's the story from Kansas Speedway. Mike Mulhern for the Winston-Salem Journal, journalnow.com.